I think Noah and Jacques messed up. You can try to escape the consequences of your actions, thinking that distance or time will shield you from the inevitable. But life has a way of catching up with you, no matter how fast or far you run. But karma will catch up. It is an unyielding force, a cosmic balance that ensures every action has a reaction, every deed its due consequence. You might not see it coming, but it is always there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to remind you of the choices you've made. Consistently running away from helping or caring for their father who had skin cancer and suffered a bad fall. This was the reality for two brothers who chose to ignore their father's pleas for assistance. They were too busy, too preoccupied with their own lives to offer a helping hand. The family, instead of coming together, was torn apart by arguments and resentment. One son, Noah, whom I had helped move 5 times, at least once to the 5th floor, answered me when I asked him to help his old father move from one end of my very large house to the other. Noah, who had always relied on his father's strength and generosity, now found himself too busy to return the favor. He said I was petty, which I am not. Quite the contrary, because I mentioned that I had helped him move 5 times. His words stung, a sharp reminder of how far they had drifted apart. The father, who had always been there for his son, now found himself accused of pettiness for simply asking for help. The other son just told me to get his younger sibling to do it. This casual dismissal, this refusal to take responsibility, was a stark contrast to the values the father had tried to instill in his children. He had taught them the importance of family, of standing by each other in times of need, never giving back to the man who brought them into this world. The father, who had given so much of himself to his children, now found himself alone, his sacrifices forgotten. The love and care he had poured into raising them, the countless sleepless nights and tireless efforts, all seemed to have been in vain. Dear sons, you have cancelled your father. In a moment of clarity, the father decided to put his feelings into words. He wrote a letter, a final attempt to reach out to his sons, to make them understand the depth of his pain. But as he wrote, he realized that their actions had already spoken louder than any words could. You have not been there when I have needed support, and I see no reason why you should inherit from me once I am not here. The father, once so generous and giving, now found himself contemplating a difficult decision. He had always planned to leave his estate to his children, a final gift to ensure their future. But now, faced with their indifference and neglect, he questioned whether they deserved it. Therefore, I asked you both to sign a document where you give up the forced inheritance grants. But you both refused, assaulting your younger sibling's economy after my death. With a heavy heart, he made the decision to change his will. His younger half-siblings, who had shown him love and respect, would inherit his estate. It was a difficult choice, but one he felt was necessary. You think you are punishing me now by cancelling me, but in reality, thank you. In a strange way, their rejection had freed him. He no longer had to carry the burden of their expectations, their demands. He could focus on the people who truly cared for him, who valued him for who he was, because I no longer have to deal with 2 selfish and unempathetic curling-only children who have never tolerated constructive criticism. The father had always tried to guide his sons, to help them grow into responsible and compassionate adults, but they had resisted his efforts, rejecting his advice and criticism. You are both only children, brought up by mothers who have mistakenly treated you as God's gift to humanity. The father reflected on the role their mothers had played in shaping their attitudes. They had been pampered, spoiled, treated as if they could do no wrong. This had fostered a sense of entitlement, a belief that they were above reproach. Your mothers never sat you down, taught you boundaries or empathy. The father had tried to teach them these important lessons, but without the support of their mothers, his efforts had been in vain. They had grown up without understanding the importance of boundaries, of empathy, of considering the needs and feelings of others. So when you cut your father off, I thank you, because I have 3 other sons who respect and love me everywhere on earth, and who respect and get along with their siblings, something you never got. And that's too bad for you. Despite the pain of their rejection, the father found solace in the love and respect of his other sons. Now, you don't have a father and grandfather either anymore, but I still have 3 wonderful other sons. Karma has no deadline. The father knew that his older sons would eventually feel the weight of their actions. They would realize the loss of their father and grandfather, the void that their indifference had created, and will always find you. Karma is patient. It waits for the right moment to strike. It is a force that cannot be escaped, no matter how far or fast you run. The father knew that his sons would eventually face the consequences of their actions, that they would come to understand the pain they had caused. What do Jacques' grandfather, his father, and God have in common? They all wrote a New Testament,